extreme amount of time pressure here? Because I can cut to the chase if you like.
Well, let's say 15
You poor
minutes.
thing.
15
Okay,
plus Q&A or longer without Q&A.
well, or just Q&A.
It's going to be good there, guy.
Okay. All right, I'll try and. I might just self-edit as it appears I've only got 1 minute left of my talk. To begin, I need to thank you all for joining me. To begin, I need to define my interpretation of music. I understand music as a condition of flow, an experience through time, of connectedness to a moment, a sequence of moments where a direct relationship is experienced, where even a sense of separate self is minimal or non-existent. I refer to music as a quality of experience rather than a coordinated language of sounds. Instead, to describe what is usually called music, I will refer more prosaically to as sound making. Music is something more that I hope to accompany my experience of sound making, but do not expect it as a matter of course. General Assembly of Interested Parties, or GAPE, is a vehicle for multidisciplinary, multifaceted performance events and the context for unpredictable creative interactions, often in non-conventional performance environments. As such, it tends toward placing performers within a non-specialized, even non-specific, broad social frame, allowing for a fluid definition of what constitutes a performance. The following is an excerpt from a description I wrote to GAPE performers in 2013. I am seeing an assembly of interested parties capable of and interested in a broader social performance where people of diverse contexts, formats and modes of functioning can meet. Admittedly, there is a desire that each participant is ready, willing, able, and stimulated by bringing an attitude and practice of generosity in the facilitation of an individual or collective catharsis, liberation, moment of transcendence. Sorry to disturb your camera. As instances of this nature are rare, the everyday consciousness within performance then is made up of an underlying attitude of generosity. This may be shown through participative presence without the need to be physically active. The act of listening or observation becoming a supportive meditation that emanates a protective field of encouragement, not passive, but at the ready for any act that might be deemed generative or stimulating, etc., to be taken. So a way of being with each other is evolved, where great creative risk and chance are encouraged through mutual trust, where we understand we give each other permission to reach beyond where we have already been. Potential creative material exists within the performance conditions of environment and context as it does within performers and audience relationships. Acknowledgement of the existence of this material clearly establishes my relationship to it and allows it to exert its influence over what, how, and why I choose to perform. So, energetic vibrational residue of the performance space and environment, so we can all feel the vibes of chicoria. That was a joke. That's very rude, sorry. Physical materials and acoustic properties, information pertaining to the context, conditions, and personal history of the event, historical usage and human geography of performance location, weather conditions, etc., constitute the material with which I, with my personal history and specific conditionality, interact. An appropriate expressive response or involvement may mean that instead of playing the guitar, I find other ways to sound. I may gesture, move, sit still, talk, arrange objects, or make marks. I can now be creatively engaged in performance by and in a mode of being that requires simply participation. The form of this participation is non-specific and is located between the conditionality, proclivities, and capabilities of self and the aforementioned conditions of performance, context, and environment, including audience with their own individual and group layers of expectations and conditionality. This space between is amorphous, without definition and fluxing. But this felt and physical space continually offers the artist a plenitude of difference in inspiration. For example, in each case, taking to, participating in the conditionalities of the specific context invited these external influences into my creative inner mix, thus giving my output a directionality toward the other, toward the host. The form of this output is now modulated by inclusiveness, a welcoming attitude towards the materials of the context, and a shift of attention away from my own proclivities. This is not to deny the self, rather to allow the self the scope to be transformed. However, subtly, by all elements of the process, seeking a fluidity and a reciprocity in a relationship. In this way, I, the performer, can make an offering to the other with a spirit of inclusiveness, inviting relationship, at the least a shared experience, which may well be one of difference, but with an harmonious intent. I challenge my artistic identity credibility as an achieved musician when I consider my physical body in space as an equally valid form of expression. But this is only true if I place such importance on my artistic identity credibility. If I reduce this concern, then all actions or ways of being become possible and plausible modes of creative articulation. So I am free to find an appropriate extension of my sound-making activity. In a gay performance event curated by me, though not officially performing as such, I saw myself as a facilitator of the artist performances unfolding before me. During one such performance, I had the impulse to grab a nearby broom and sweep the floor, which immediately saw me shift my position from peripheral viewer-listener to active participant. On one occasion, an asylum seeker support group happened to be present at the same location where a gate was being held. They were celebrating something or other, and their activity became framed by our simultaneous performance. Or was it that our performance became framed by their celebration? This points to the possibility that artistic interactions can be open to a broader social space, inviting life into art and art into life. That differing modes of being can coexist, even co-inform each other, without posing a threat to either group's integrity. My sudden act of sweeping and the coincidence of GAPE and the asylum seekers group brought to the self-contained delineated activities of each a glimpse of the other, creatively stimulating and renewing what may constitute each discrete body and opening to a broader sense of connectedness. This way of being in proximity to each other requires a generosity of spirit, trust that the other's intentions are good-willed, and tolerance when things may not be exactly as I like. If these elements are present and we can tap a collective energy, we are more able to have encounters with connectedness. Feeling supported and included empowers us, cultivating a generic psychological well-being. To end, I would like to tell a brief story. I was walking with some friends down a back street in Malacca, and it began raining heavily. I was the only one without an umbrella and was getting drenched. An elderly woman had stopped and was observing our group. When she beckoned me to her, "Here, take this umbrella," she cried. I didn't understand at first, then I refused, but she insisted. I said okay because my friends were saying she would be offended if I didn't accept, so I did. I wanted to walk her back to her nearby house, but she refused. I was generally shocked by this act of overt generosity, which I suspect would never have occurred in my own culture. It inspired me to give generously of myself whenever possible.
I want to pick up on what you said about art and life in art. It's one of these things that I've been investigating myself quite a bit. The Buryard quote of art being a living reality, so that when you're actually performing something, creating something, performing something, you are living life at the same time. It's not something special that you might do. Well, it's kind of special. It's wonderful, but it's
life
part.
is special, isn't it?
Yes, but part of life as well. You've got anything to say?
No, I go along with that, but it needs to be a lived experience, doesn't it? You actually have to practice that. And I think as students of music, there's so much pressure to perform and to perform to your best all the time. And I think it's very important sometimes just to play around with sounds in a very unstructured way. You know, that any sound has a quality and a texture that is worth investigating and listening to. Which is something sounds very childlike and sort of doesn't have a great aspiration in some way. It's not you don't need to be educated to do this, but I think it's a great foil to the pressures of feeling like you need to gather all this information up and practice and practice and practice to get better, and then you'll finally arrive at being a brilliant musician. I think you need to balance that out with just mucking around, and that's a completely legitimate and useful, in fact, possibly even more important, because it can foster connectedness to making a sound, which is the basis of anything more sophisticated.